All right, we're recording now. All right, we good?
Yep, I'm good.
All right, so I got Tyler Curtis here, strength and conditioning coach at Florida Atlantic University right now. Tyler, thanks so much for being on the show. I'm super pumped to have this conversation. Obviously, you and I have a short-term working relationship from years ago, but following you on social media, we got mutual friends in the industry, so I'm really pumped to have this conversation, man. Welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
No doubt, man. So, real quick, can you just introduce yourself to those that will listen to this? Just, where you've been, how you landed in the fitness industry, and we're going to talk about supplements. So, also, how has supplements played a role in your training career and also in your work with your athletes?
Yeah. So my name is Tyler Curtis, and I am the current assistant director of strength and conditioning at Florida Atlantic University. Here, my main teams are baseball, soccer, men's and women's tennis, and beach volleyball. Those are the main teams that I work with. Prior to this, I was working with the Army with active combat duty personnel at Fort Bragg as an H2F strength coach. And then before that, I was up in Philly managing a gym at G Strength in South Philly. So that's kind of where the last 4 years has been for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean before that, I've been doing this for about 11 years now. I got my start at 19 with my high school strength coach, and he's kind of the main person that brought me into this field. At first, I was his athlete. He was kind enough to give me free training, and back in, 2009 at this point, where, I was a decent athlete at the time, but I wasn't anything like I would grow to become after working with him. So when I started working with him, I was very directionless, and then he got me on the right path, and we started doing some pretty awesome stuff. He was really ahead of his time and in a lot of ways. So shout out to Todd Kuchery for everything that he did for me. And then what's that?
Coaching?
Yeah, he's still coaching. He owns Titletown Fight Club in Canastota, New York, so a little ways away from you. But yeah, he got me in as an athlete, and then I saw the improvement immediately on the field with football, volleyball, and track and field. So I started getting really interested in the science behind it. So he started dropping me some nuggets on what an athlete should be doing in terms of training. So once we kind of got, I started picking his brain, he allowed me to intern with him for a summer and kind of run some classes in the evening with him after my training in the morning. So, and from there, it's kind of the rest of his history, really.
Cool. I like it. You played volleyball?
I did.
What position?
I was middle blocker.
Wow.
Yep.
Middle, so you got some hops back in the day.
Back in the day, I used to have a 34-inch vertical. I can't sniff that anymore. But I was too late in the game on basketball.
Yeah.
So everybody was way too far ahead of me. And then also football was extremely serious for me. So I needed a break mentally from the seriousness, and especially the seriousness I took with football. So I was like, all right, that's kind of like a get right, have fun sport, and then go to track and field, which was a little bit more serious.
Yeah, I like it. So it's how you've been training since 19 years oldish. We always say we've been working out since maybe 7th, 8th grade. But when do you think when were you really serious about it? Where you actually had a program, you were consistent? When did that start?
So our JV football coach was pretty. You might actually know him. Dewey Weimer was my JV football coach. He's the athletic director at Victor right now.
I think I've heard the last name, but no, I don't. I don't know him. I think I've heard the name before.
Okay. Yeah. So he's over at Victor now, and he was our JV football coach, and he was a fiery guy, and loves getting after it in the weight room. So he actually brought the first iteration of Bigger, Faster, Stronger to our school. So I started that probably in 8th grade.
Cool.
It is kind of the first program I ever started running, and then he ended up leaving and going to Sequoia, and then from there I got with Todd I think it was halfway through if I'm remembering this correctly, halfway through my freshman year. So about 8th, 9th grade is when I really started getting in it beyond the whole, like, oh, I have a bench set in my garage and kind of use it every now and then.
Very cool. All right, so let's dive into supplements. You've had an awesome trajectory, right? I know you were at Syracuse for a stint. After Syracuse, I don't know if there was something in between, but then you came over to Rochester at PCX, and then you linked up over with Gian at G Strength. So you've had quite the path. How is supplements? Has it been the same? Has it been different working in the private sector now with the college athletes?
Yeah. So, I mean, from a supplement standpoint, from what I've always been into supplements for whatever odd reason. I was downing EAS, horrible tasting stuff back in like 7th, 8th grade. That tasted like absolute like liquefied chalk, basically.
Didn't matter though. Didn't matter.
So for whatever reason, I've always been drawn to them, and my opinions have changed drastically on them. At first, it was, oh, I need this absolutely. Like, you need to be within the anabolic window. Within 2 hours of your workout, you need to be slamming protein shakes. Blah 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 blah. To no, I don't need any of this. This is all kind of hogwash. It's all garbage. To now, it's a much more tailored kind of thought process about the entire thing, where like structured, directed supplementation can be super, super vital for somebody, depending on what they're dealing with. But it also has to be just like a diet plan. It's got to be individualized to the person and meet the person where they're at. Yeah. So that's kind of like the evolution of my thought process as the last 10 years. But I've also I'm kind of hopping into the camp of, with everything that's going on in agricultural space, supplementation through quality sources is becoming more and more important, even for the regular everyday individual. So I do have a strong opinion on that, but there's still supplements, right? Like that you still got to put in the work in terms of eating the right things more often than not, eating whole foods, getting the most nutrients from whole foods. And if you can do that, then we can kind of start talking about the supplement side of things.
Yeah. So I'm hearing, and I think you and I kind of speak the same language, because it almost is, you look at that pyramid, sometimes kids flip it over, right? The top of the pyramid, which is the smallest point, should be the supplementation. Everything underneath is the bigger, spend more of your time on. But now, you see a lot of athletes and kids, they flip it, right? They won't eat a single thing all day, but they'll take their BCAAs, they'll take their glutamine, they'll take their pre-workout, they'll take their protein, and then they will eat dinner at 9 p.m. at night. And that's all they've eaten since, a Pop-Tart since 2 o'clock. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that's like kind of the pseudo-science mentality for athletes?
Marketing, in a word, marketing. Every bodybuilder has kind of their own supplement line, and they all look great, and we all kind of ignore the fact that they're on other supplements that probably are doing a lot more for them than the creatine and the whey protein. Yeah, exactly. So that whole side of it, the marketing side of it, it's also fairly, don't want to say easy, but it's not a super hard barrier to entry from a standpoint. If you want to start making your own supplements, there's money out there that will support that, and there's just a lot of stuff out on the market. Sure. So I think it's constantly in people's faces, and I think from a certain aspect of it, certain supplements like caffeine yield a direct response once you've taken it. So people take it for 1 or 2 weeks and they feel absolutely awesome on it, and then that's how it is forever. So when that's not necessarily the case. So I think that's a lot easier than, and it's harder to eat food. It's harder to eat 3-4 square meals a day than it is to pound a protein shake with 1,800 calories and God knows what else is in there. Yeah. So I think the supplementation, in terms of, it's a little bit easier. And then the marketing aspect of it, I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that, kind of feeds itself.
Yeah. So it sounds like number one, athletes, as hard as it is, whole food diet is probably the route to take and really figure out how. So
Mhm.
how do you have that conversation? What are your thoughts about that? Without trying to, because you're precision nutrition certified, correct? Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you can dive, deeper than what I can. So what's that initial conversation, right? Because I want to have a parent or athlete listen to this, and I
Yep.
don't want them just to go right to the GN, go into the vitamin shop and say, well, I heard a podcast with all these supplements. I need them. Right.
Yep.
So, I'd rather start with the food piece and where should they be starting? And then we'll transition into like what supplements can complement everything
Mhm.
else they're doing.
Yep. I mean, for most athletes across the board, especially athletes, their protein needs are higher than the layperson. So if I can get an athlete to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and they can do that consistently, then we're off to an amazing start.
Sure.
What I always tell people is, all right, so you're going to go to Vitamin Shop and spend $55 on a whey protein, let's say. And well, why don't you take that $55 and go to Costco and buy 4 or 5 ribeyes? And that's going to serve you a lot more because there's a lot more things in the actual steak than there is in the supplement, right? Like the supplement's meant to be fast digesting, quick acting, but that is more of like where we can go with the supplement type of deal. Like, all right, so I have these 3 to 4 meals that I've eaten. I'm eating 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, but I still need to gain weight or I'm still hungry. That's when we can add the shakes. That's when we can add the additional stuff in the morning. Without having a blood test, you kind of are shooting in the dark. And I know that's more difficult in some places than others, especially in New York. I have this issue with actually my older sister. She has a hard time getting a blood test outside of the normal lipid panel and metabolic testing. So without knowing those numbers, it gets a little bit more tricky. But if we can start off with that 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and then from there, if we can stick to what's called an 80-20 rule, that's great. So 80% of your calories come from whole foods and quality places. 20% is kind of like your cheat meal, feed your face, whatever you want.
Sure.
And then we also kind of got to go back to the goals. Like, is the athlete typically what I'm sure you're probably working with is a lot of younger kids that are really skinny and they just don't eat enough.
Sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong. So from there, it's like, all right, well, I'm more concerned about the calories in if you're trying to gain weight than I am the cleanness of them all the time. Because if you eat clean all the time, it can be mentally taxing for people,
Sure.
Especially younger athletes that, school lunches and all that kind of stuff. They just don't have the high quality stuff available to them. So just eat. I just need you to eat. And then from there, let's go from there. If it's the reverse of that, if we're trying to lose weight or recomp or whatever people want to call it nowadays, then I'm a little bit more strict about that. And then my last thing with people that are trying to lose weight, eat all your meals during the daytime. And if we can stick to that sort of stuff, then we're in a really good position.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are awesome points, and those are definitely things that are valuable for athletes because you get the athlete who needs to put on weight, and the mentality is like, eat as much as you can, and that 80-20 can be like, it could be 70-30, it could be 60-40 because calories in are going to be number one, and then you get the athlete that they may need to lose weight or they want to almost look like an athlete. They will say if you wear a tank top, right, you want to look good in that tank top to some degree. But correct me if I'm wrong, there also is that idea that those athletes can kind of treat it the same way, because most kids who are trying to lose weight, they're not even eating enough. So they end up storing and holding. So would it be fair to say like any athlete, obviously with if there's a health issue, if there's, celiac or something like that, right, there's a little bit more detail to that. But a lot of kids that want to lose weight, a lot of the problem is there's not even eating enough, so they're just storing. So they probably could eat a little bit more as well instead of trying to focus on the body comp and or, just changing their physique.
Yeah. So definitely with overweight athletes, I do tend to find that they're not always telling me the whole truth. And
Fair.
sometimes it's not even their fault. Like they actually just go and eat things and they're just kind of unconscious to it.
Yeah.
Where it's usually like it's the late night feedings
Yeah.
and it's the binging on the weekends.
Sure.
So and then it's the inadequate amount of calories through the Monday through Friday.
Sure.
So like, and then they make up for it in the 2 to 3 days that, they have on the weekend. So I always try to like, the big thing with that is we never want to vilify anybody for what they eat or why they're eating a certain way. But if you do have these certain things that you want to go like, all right, I need to lose 10 pounds. Okay. Well, I need to gain 10 pounds. Okay. Well, we need to start with something first. And that's why I always start with that protein measurement, because it serves two things. Like I can say that to anybody and we're probably going to be in good shape. As long as it's coming from quality sources, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be organic or, pasture raised or anything like that. Like in an ideal world, yes, it is. But if that's not feasible, then that's not feasible. But chicken breast or steak or whatever is going to be better than Burger King.
Yeah.
So with those athletes, I always start there. And then from after that, it's kind of really getting into the psychosocial dynamics of how they are with food, why they eat certain things. Like I've had people, and then what are their health conditions currently? Like a good example, I always share this story. We are kind of the product of our social environment.
Yep.
So what our spouses are doing, what our friends are doing, what our coaches are telling us to do, all those things play a factor and play a role in how we're going to behave, right? So, and that stems to food. So, for instance, if your spouse is on a ketogenic diet and you're trying to lose weight and you're seeing them get great results, okay, well, I'm going to try the ketogenic diet. No other factor other than, the person right next to me is doing it. Right. So we got to have those conversations and, okay, is that an appropriate diet protocol for me? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I've had people close to me where, I tried a ketogenic diet because my husband was on it. Well, okay. So how'd you feel? I felt like I had a lump in my stomach for like hours. I'm like, okay, wait, ketogenic diet. Okay. So you understand that that's not a protein diet. That's a fat diet, right? That's a fat adapted diet. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, didn't you have your gallbladder removed like 6 months ago? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, you can't be on a keto diet. You all the bile and stuff that your body produces, you've lost the majority of that. You're not going to feel good on a ketogenic diet.
Sure, yeah.
Like, oh wow, that makes so much sense. So you get them off it like immediately. So having those down to earth conversations, and I wish there were more blanket sweeping statements that I can make that would apply to a lot of people. But the longer I've done this, the more and more intricate it has become. And you do have to kind of hone in on what that person's going through and like what their particular situation is. Because I could say all the live long day that like, and then another one is quote unquote picky eaters, right? Like that's kids tend to be quote unquote picky eaters. And it's like, well, are they picky eaters or are we just bad cooks? Like maybe we need to build up our culinary skills and make it more of a, inclusive thing or a tasteful thing, because if it doesn't taste good, no one's going to eat it. You don't want to eat it as an adult. So why would your kid want to eat it? So having those conversations, kind of my next step after kind of those first two, eat all your meals during the daytime. And then, the protein thing.
Well, you said agree with the vilify, right? I hear it so often that, we hear the word fat and food that has fat in it. So that food's going to make you fat. And it's just, well, a Burger King, McDonald's cheeseburger is going to be different than toast with peanut butter, right? There's still fat in both. However, fat in peanut butter, fat in avocado, right? You get toast, avocado, and egg is very different than an egg sandwich from McDonald's. They both are going to have fat, but they're both going to do two different things in the body. So I think that idea of don't vilify, and that's that intrapersonal perspective in terms of the conversations and your approach, especially with young athletes. You have college kids now, but they were once high school kids and once middle school kids. and how that conversation's approached, because it's really hard to yell at a 7th grader for eating unhealthy when you let them buy lunch, and there probably isn't one healthy thing in the middle school lunch line. I've been working in schools for 10 years. I have never, ever seen a healthy choice, right? Like pizza is considered a vegetable.
Yep.
So it's that's where we can't vilify kids, where we can't yell at a kid for not making smart choices, because their only choice is pizza, crappy iceberg lettuce. So what do? They smother it with ranch dressing, and then they get one ice cream bar. Is ice cream bar really the problem? And that whole meal, is the ice cream bar really the problem? So that term vilify is huge. I think that's a great way to put it. So let's dive into supplements. I think you did a great job touching on just, let's eat 1 gram of protein. Let's eat before night. And then you can dive deeper, with a blood panel, really figuring out what diet is best for you. So how would supplements, because, athletes are going to buy them no matter what we say, no matter if we say, hey, here's $60, don't go to the supplement shop, because they're going to go on Instagram and they're going to see some diesel-ass dude. They're going to see LeBron James. They're going to see someone holding, they're going to see The Rock holding up his drink, and they're going to go get it, because they're going to equate that. So, if an athlete's going to go get supplements, which ones what direction are you going to point them in, and why? What are going to be the values?
So the biggest ones, especially for the athlete, like if you say you're working with an athlete that has to produce energy over a long period of time, B vitamins or a multivitamin is going to be huge, because those are kind of our energy producing vitamins. So if I can get them on a multi and have them taking that every day, that quells some of the issues of like the bad school lunches and, the bad food choices. It doesn't solve all of our problems, but it puts us in the right direction, right? If it's an athlete trying to build muscle, or even if they're having some cognitive issues, like they have a hard time focusing or anything like that, creatine is a fantastic option. It's the most research supplement out there. There are literally thousands of papers on it, with basically, outside of maybe a little bit of GI stress, if you're taking it just by itself, that's kind of the only issue with creatine. No, it's not a steroid. No, it will not make you fat. No, it will not poison your liver, and you do not have to cycle off of it.
Your kidneys not going to explode.
Yeah. Before I get all the messages about like, oh, I heard about. No, trust me, I can show you 900 papers on it.
So what about the multivitamins? So I know like multivitamins is that big one where some will say like it's really a waste of time because there's so little in it. I know I've seen you look at brands like Thorne. Is there like a specific multivitamin and what to look for? So you're not just, some multivitamins have vitamin D and everyone's like, it's awesome, but it's 200 milligrams. And, me, someone who's got darker skin complexion and I'm in upstate New York, I don't think 200 milligrams is really going to do anything, no matter how much sunlight I get, the 3 months we have sun here.
Right. So it depends on what you're taking it for. So like a multivitamin, I like to do that one because that is the blanket sweeping one, right? But you do have to get it from a quality company, right? Like most of the stuff, and people a lot smarter than me, such as Charles Poliquin, if you're buying it off the store shelf, it's probably not good. The reason being is that it's probably not packaged correctly. The facilities that it is packaged in are probably contaminated. And there's a whole host of other issues that you probably don't want store-bought stuff. So you want to take it from a company that is dedicated to making certain supplements. So my go-to is actually Designs for Sport. You actually have to have a coach's account with them in order to order stuff. So if you ever wanted to get on there and start ordering stuff for people, you could.
Talk to your friend. Zane Hick hooked me up with her.
Melissa?
Yeah.
Melissa's great. Yep. So you can always contact Melissa. They do a great job. Their multi is probably my favorite that I've had. There's also Nutridyne, there's Thorne, and there's ATP Labs. Those are kind of my go-to ones. Especially from a price point standpoint, they're pretty reasonable with all their stuff. So for a multi, I'm looking for, does it have all my trace minerals? Does it have all my B vitamin or all my water soluble vitamins? and does it have those in high amounts? Because like what you're saying with, I'm not so concerned about the vitamin D aspect. If I'm going to go ahead and take vitamin D, I'm going to just take vitamin D.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a separate issue, because that does need to be paired with other things, or else you can get some calcification and stuff like that if you take too much. But yeah, I like the multivitamin or a B complex if you're close to competition, and you need that burst of energy, especially if you've had a very low day in terms of nutrition. Creatine's another one that I would love for most athletes to be on, just because there's really no reason not to be. Whey protein, I struggle with now. I used to love whey. It's a go-to for a lot of people, but the gastric emptying aspect of it is a little tough. It goes through the system so quick. So there is some evidence to suggest that how much of it are you really absorbing? If it's going through you.
What does that mean? Because I'm sure, there's going to be, because I've had this conversation. I keep it really simple with my athletes. You know, 'cause protein is the number, like you just said, it's the first thing you're going to talk to people about, because it's so valuable. And I'll tell athletes, just go to the store and buy whey protein, right? There's 1,000 of them. So you're going to be way more confused, going in, and you're going to be more confused when you come out, because you've just looked at 100 different brands. So what would be an optimal protein to purchase, so there isn't going to be that emptying?
So my thing with protein, so with whey protein specifically, if you're going to take it, one, you better not be lactose intolerant, right? So if you're taking that and you have an allergy of some sort or an intolerance to dairy, then it's a no-go for you. You shouldn't be having it at all. Two, if you can, so I'm one of those people that can handle whey protein, you should be pairing it with a fat. That'll slow the actual digestion rather than throwing it in a thing of water and just chugging it, that you're going to be running to the bathroom pretty quickly. So do a full shake if you're going to do that. Like throw in blueberries, throw in peanut butter, throw in some stuff that's going to actually take a little bit of time for it to work its way through the system. If you can't handle whey protein, then beef protein is a really good option as well. It's typically a little bit more expensive, but you can find stuff for under $60.
So if you're like lactose intolerant, I've had athletes that got celiac. Would those be like going a beef protein would be optimal?
Yeah, that would be a better option if you have to have a protein powder.
Sure. Okay. And what about thoughts on the plant-based?
Plant-based, that's fine. If you can tolerate the taste of it, I can't. For me, it tastes typically you have to do so much stuff to it to make it tolerable in terms of taste. So if you're dumping a bunch of sugar or juices or whatever else in it, then it kind of defeats the purpose of taking it, right? Especially if you're trying to lose weight. So rice protein is okay. You just got to understand that if you take that sort of stuff, that you're not going to get all of your essential amino acids, which if you're building muscle, which most of us I think are, if you're taking something to build muscle, then you take an incomplete protein like a pea protein or a rice protein, then it's going to be kind of an issue, because you're not meeting the essential amino acid needs that your body needs to build muscle.
I like it. So do you think those would be your top? I hear multivitamin, obviously I think with Amazon and how things are, I would assume most people, I take that back. Most people probably get multivitamin from like a Wegmans or just your grocery store. But B complex, creatine, and whey, those are probably your top four.
Yeah, those are big ones. And then another one is, and this one I do have a tough time with as well. But I do think in certain circumstances it is necessary. Fish oils, are a really important one, especially if you don't eat cold water fish. There's a lot of people out there that I just don't like fish. I don't like seafood of any kind. So if you're one of those people, then you probably should be supplementing with some sort of omega-3, or you should be eating a lot of dairy, a lot of fortified meats and stuff like that have that sort of thing, because it is really, really important for your lipid panels and everything like that, and maintaining the right ratio of omega-3 and omega-6s within your blood. So A fish oil is really, really important. The problem with fish oil, especially, and I tell everybody, do not buy it from the store, because more often than not, because it's typically not refrigerated, which it should be. It's probably not in a glass container, which it should be. Typically the plastics and stuff like that, especially if it's sitting in the heat, right? We've heard about microplastics in our water bottles and like our plastic water bottles, I'm sure. Same thing happens to the fish oil. So want to make sure that it's in a glass bottle. It's in a dark glass bottle, because the light can disrupt the actual compounds within the fish oil. And then you want to make sure that it's back to the triglyceride form. So what happens with manufacturing processes with fish oil is, in order to, they harvest the fish, they clean the fish, they extract the oil out of the fish. Then it's the triglyceride form, but that oil has to be cleaned. So what they do is they turn it into a methyl ester form. And then typically, because it's easier from a manufacturing process and it's less expensive, they don't put it back in the original triglyceride form. So if you have it in this methyl ester form, it's easier to oxidize, and it actually does more harm than good.
Gotcha.
So that's why I'm a huge fan of, not to, DFS should be sponsoring me at this point, but Designs for Sport, that's what they do. They go from triglyceride, methyl ester back to triglyceride. So they take that extra step to make sure that it's a higher quality product and it actually lasts longer. So one with fish oil, always refrigerate it just like you would raw fish, and then make sure that the manufacturing process is up to snuff.
Cool. Right. So I think the big rocks that what you're saying is like there's a lot of purpose, there's a lot of intentional purchasing almost.
Yep.
To these supplements, because I don't know if it's done as much as it was back in our day, where you would just go buy your stack. Right. Yep. You go to GMC, or GNC, you go to Vitamin Shop, and I want the stack, and you get your protein, you get your creatine, you get your BCAAs. And that's the one thing, I'm not hearing BCAAs, I'm not hearing glutamine, I'm not hearing a lot of these things that kids are taking. I had a dad the other day say, he takes his BCAAs all the time. And I'm like, why? Like, to me, I'm like, why is he not just eat food, eat real protein?
Right.
Because that's going to give you your amino acids. Like, so is that your thought process too, when it comes to some of those other supplements that kids are taking, that they could be just spending money that they don't need to?
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of wasted money, right? There is something to be said about like, oh, you're just flushing your money down the toilet. Like there definitely is. Because if you don't have, and I do try to stress to people, if you're going to go the supplement route, then you need to speak to a professional that knows about the supplements first. So that way you don't waste your money. Just kind of like you would consult anybody about going to buy a car, right? Like, or buying a really high-end fashion item. You're not going to drop $400 on Yeezys if they look like garbage and they aren't comfortable and all this other stuff, right? Like, you're probably going to ask somebody, oh, like, what do you think of that? Or what do you think about this brand new Vizio TV that I saw? Oh, no, it's good. Like, so people should have that intentionality, kind of what you were speaking to, have that intentionality with buying supplements, or else you're just going to be, or you could be doing more harm than good and actually delaying your progress because you're eating or taking really bad supplements. With regards to BCAAs, and this is a hot button topic for a lot of people.
Yes, let's go.
BCAAs are fine, not necessary. If you're going to go the essential amino acid route, just take an EAA supplement. So they make those now, the essential amino acids. So you need all 9 of them in order to build muscle. It's not just leucine. Leucine's the most important one, right? Which is that big one, which is usually 2-1-1 ratio to isoleucine and valine in your BCAA stacks, right? So, but leucine's the big one, but it needs to be complemented with all the other amino acids. So just taking an essential amino acid. Also, you have to earn your essential amino acids. So you have to earn your peri-workout nutrition. Like you better be training pretty damn hard to be justifying, essential amino acids. If you're doing 3 sets of 5 goblet squats to a high box, you're probably not training hard enough right now, like, to really warrant that. When you start getting into a more complicated program, German body comp, whatever you want to call it, like some sort of program like that, then okay, we can, really pushing the threshold. Then we can start talking about those bigger supplements and those big stacks and all that kind of stuff. And then I guess while we're on it, I better address it, caffeine, because they're all going to take it. So know why you're taking your caffeine. If you're drinking caffeine by the buckets full per day, you're doing so much more harm than you are good. And you can call me a hypocrite. That's fine, because I love caffeine just as much as anybody else. But I do it in a way where it's a little bit more beneficial. Like if you're starting your day off with a Monster, midday Monster, end of the day Monster, no good. If you have a testing day, a little bit of caffeine's not a bad idea. Now you shouldn't be necessarily drinking Monsters or pre-canned caffeine energy drinks, but whatever. If you're trying to build muscle, caffeine's not a great idea either. It's a vasoconstrictor. If you delay the blood supply to the working muscles, you're not going to build muscle because you're cutting off, and better yet, you're taking your essential amino acids, right? So, but I just took 350 milligrams of caffeine. Those essential amino acids aren't getting around the blood system the way they should be.
Sure.
To actually help with repair and recovery for the next training bout. So know why you're taking your caffeine. If it's a all-out single burst, like high CNS driven workout, competition, whatever the case may be, then that's probably warranted. But you also have to be aware of what you're drinking and how often you're drinking it. And then if you're in a muscle building phase, it's probably not a great idea. One thing I will say, like high school, it's a little bit different than college. College, we have certain things that are banned. Like you can't be drinking Celsius and then you won't pass the piss test.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
They just recently banned it because of the guarana. I always say that wrong, but that's a banned substance. Yep. And
why is that a banned substance? Is it like supposed to be enhancement into high volume?
Yeah. And then it's also tough, I believe, from a male to female, keeping it on the same plane, because there are certain recommendations, or there is a threshold that they allow for milligrams per pound of body weight with caffeine. So you'll pee hot if you have too much caffeine in your system and you're at a lower body weight. So if you're drinking, if you're a 100-pound girl and you're drinking a 200 or 250 milligram caffeine beverage like Celsius, then you're not going to be in good shape. But it's mostly the guarana. I can't speak to exactly why that specific ingredient is banned, but that's the main reason.
It's different if you crush a giant cup of coffee, right? That's not gonna.
Not necessarily. But if you do have, say you go to Starbucks and you get 4-shot espresso cold brew or something insane, then you won't pass the drug test.
Interesting.
So yeah, you got to understand that, like, the setting that you're in, especially we're in championship season right now. So like the likelihood of a drug test is much higher than it is any other time of the year.
Yeah.
So if you crush a Celsius or two, then you get booted from a competition and you're starting pitcher, then you're putting your team out in a bad way. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I think the cool thing about this is, and what people have to understand is, we talk about supplements, right? And you've named borderline 3 quote unquote supplements, and everything else is a vitamin mineral, right? Like that's the big thing, whey, creatine, and then the EAA supplements, right? Those are your quote unquote supplements, and everything else is multivitamin, B complex, fish oil, those are natural things. I think that's important for people to realize. So they're not just going in and seeing all these fancy names at a vitamin shop and saying, "Oh, I need this, right?" Yeah. Like a lot of the stuff you can get, obviously it's harder if you just eat whole foods to get all those things, but the big rocks it is more so whole food and what the body naturally produces. And then supplementation probably nowadays is definitely needed. It's because it's just so hard to eat everything that you need to get everything that your body needs.
Yeah, definitely. I do try to tell people, like, if you're going to put all the effort and hard work into whatever goal it is, like be a better athlete, lose weight, gain weight, whatever the case may be, why not just go the extra mile? Like, you're already there, right? You're already going to practice for however many hours a week. You're already spending money on a gym membership. You're training with the trainer. You're getting put through all this, physical stuff. Why not just eat the food? Just do the extra thing that you need. I know and people really, it's tough, especially now. I think it's harder now than it ever has been. This aspect of delayed gratification, because everything is so instantaneous, and I hate sounding like that 72-year-old guy, back in my day type of deal, but you don't see the instant gratification like you would like chugging a Monster drink.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you don't immediately feel so much better until you start feeling unhealthy. And athletes do need to understand that you can still be very physically active and you can still be metabolically unhealthy. There was a study published, I believe it was 2 years ago, that said about 12% of the United States population is metabolically healthy. 12%. And it's the thing, man. So, like, and food is information. Food gives your body information and tells your body what to do with said information. So have the right information and your body will do the right things for you. Keep giving it bad signals. It's gonna betray you eventually.
Yeah.
So if you're there already, just go the extra mile.
Yeah, because I just reflecting back on what you said, you get the athlete that they'll work out 2 or 3 times a week with the team. With high school kids, you'll get the kid that goes to the team workouts twice a week. They'll see me for once a week, yet they're still doing your 3x5 box squats. They've been stuck in 45 pounds for months on months.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, then they're like, they come in with an energy drink, or they're like, I'm going to take this and that. I'm like, well, you need to work harder first, because you're not going to do anything with what you're putting in your body.
Yep.
But then you get the kid who, I can think of athletes right now that they go hard 6 days a week, and it's like really hard for them to take the 7th day off. And that's the conversation of, don't take the 7th day off. Just do like extensive plyos. Just do like, your zone 2, 20 minutes of cardio or conditioning, wherever you want to look. Do some ball handling, break a sweat, like work on things that aren't intensive on the body. Yep. And those kids, I'm like, well, no wonder why you're getting cramps all the time. No wonder why you're not seeing that you're seeing that plateau. And so you're missing this piece. And like you just said, just do it. You're already doing everything else at a high volume, at a high intensity. You add these in, you're going to, the B complex, the vitamins, you're going to have the energy times 2, the creatine recovery. You're going to see that, right? So you get those end of the spectrum kids. But I think that's super valuable, man. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Right, let's get to the quick hitters. Any final thoughts on the supplement piece? I'm sure you got a laundry list of things, and it's probably hard not to talk about everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to overwhelm anybody, but yeah, that most 98% of the people, like, that's going to cover most of your bases. And then more targeted supplementation, that's usually for really, really high clip athletes or people that are putting themselves through the ringer and stuff like that. So maybe a topic for another day on that one. But yeah, following that stuff, and you'll be, more often than not, you'll be good.
Yeah, and I think something to highlight too, like in this conversation, right? We hit up nutrition, we've hit up supplements, but the thing that that I don't try to do, and I don't know how you practice with your work with your clients nutritionally. We're not sitting here and calculating calories. We're not sitting here saying you got to eat 9 meals a day. We're not sitting here where you have to know exactly how much protein, how much fat, how much carbs, right? Like there's simple strategies that take intentional effort to be able to accomplish every day, but we're not sitting here and saying you need to calculate 2,400 calories. It has to be this percent of protein, this percent of carbs, this percent of fats, right? They're tangible things that I think all athletes can be able to do, even with a busy schedule. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I'm not hearing that that's bad. Right. Like, if you don't have any, illnesses or, celiac or any stomach issues, whey protein can be effective. And 2 scoops of that, in addition to breakfast and some snacks throughout the day, those can hit those checkpoints. Especially for most athletes, middle school, high school, you're working with some D1 high end studs. Most of my kids, they're not touching 150 yet, not touching 160. So it's not as complicated to put back, 1 gram a pound when it's only 120, 130.
Yep.
Right? And that can float between 0.8 to 1, right? If they're at 0.8, it's okay. If they're at 1.1, it's okay. If they're at 0.79, that's fine. So there is a lot of flexibility with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's get some quick hitters. All right, best resource that athletes or that you steal information on for supplements and even nutrition.
Examine.com.
Or training too.
Yeah. Examine.com.
Knew you were going to say that. I already knew it.
They're fantastic. What Kamal has done over there is truly incredible.
And that's examine, just so people, examine.com.
Yes, examine.com it's absolutely awesome. Also anything from the Poliquin people. So Poliquin Group, Strength Sensei, Kilo Strength Society. Their Kilo Strength Society is more actual strength training than they are supplements. But those guys are fantastic. Designs for Sport. Yet again, they hold seminars and master classes and all that kind of stuff. So I do kind of enjoy reading, but I do better in video format or in-person stuff. So I try to steal from that kind of stuff.
Love it. What is your favorite lift?
It's got to be the deadlift, and it's only because I'm good at it.
Straight bar?
Yeah.
Straight bar. All right. I like it. Do you like the trap bar too?
I do love the trap bar. Yeah. Favorite exercise to program for people? Trap bar.
100%. Right. Love it. It honestly, nowadays for like athletes and even Gen Pops, it boggles my mind that I don't see more trap bars. I don't see it. If I walk into a weight room and I don't see a trap bar, I'm just like, this is not. Unfortunately, my mind goes straight to if I don't see 4 to 8 trap bars in a gym now, I'll just automatically think like I'm suspect about this gym right now.
Yeah.
Unless it's
why not have it? Why not have it? Like
they're $100 too, right? Like a trap bar is $100.
Yeah.
It's really like those are the most. I'm surprised it's not more because of like how valuable I think they are. You got to have them without a doubt. If you don't know what a trap bar deadlift, go follow Tyler, follow Fit Strength. Like there's probably 80% of my videos are trap bar deadlift videos. Just gotta love it.
Exactly.
All right, so I was questioning whether to ask you this question just because I remember when you were back in Rochester, and this is where people need to know like the grind is real. Like the grind is real when you're getting to the point that you're at. So I love seeing you at Florida Atlantic because I know when we were back at PCX and you were an Uber driver, right? Or Lyft?
Uber, yep.
Uber. What was that like? What was it like being an Uber driver in Rochester?
It was interesting. I mean, it was pretty chill job for definitely. I struggled getting on the road a lot because I was driving a 1999 Honda Accord. So
Silver rocket right there though. So that was all right. Silver was tight.
Yeah. It was an old 1999 Honda Accord white it was a 4-door but it had 170,000 miles on it, and I was putting it through the ringer in terms of I mean I had 2 stints at PCX, and my full-time job was a landscaper, PCX in the evening, and then on weekends was Uber driving. So
I forgot you did landscaping too.
Yeah, it was a grind for sure.
That's what people don't get, man. People don't. Like working in the gym is super fun, but it's just you just got to figure it out. You just got to work.
Yep.
You just got to work, man.
Yep. It's fortunately, I had the clarity of knowing what I wanted to do since I was 15. So it does not mean I didn't have my doubts and like, what am I doing with my life right now? Like, this is just not it. But stayed the course, and I've definitely taken a very unconventional path in this industry to get where I'm at now. But so don't follow me in terms of if you want to get a good job faster, don't do what I did. Yeah. But no, it's been fun. It's been a wild ride.
I'll give you credit, man, because I think you're, knowing you and Zane, I think it shows and I always say this a lot, like some people are, they if you give, then I'll do, versus I will do, then I'll get,
Mhm.
or then someone will give. I remember seeing you in that PCX office, right? You had your strength and conditioning essentials book, and then
Mhm.
you had the Poliquin chart, right there, and you had your notebooks and stuff. And I'm like, this man wasn't given an office. This man created a hub where he can continuously learn, because, working in the private sector, as you may get 5 athletes, you could get a 12-session class, you could get one and they don't show up,
Yep.
or they get a stomach ache halfway through and you got nothing left to do.
Yep.
So I think, seeing you and Zane and that grind, and just you coming in, no one prompted you to have a workstation. No one prompted you to do professional development. No one prompted you to put forth the effort. And I think that's so valuable. And I think that is the very reason why I know that you were going to get to where you were going to get. Right. So that's just, those are exceptional traits that exceptional people are going to be given the things that they want. And I commend you for that, because, that grind it's tough. It's no joke. I didn't do the weekend 7 to 11 split, so that's a whole nother level. And I'm proud that you kept your mind focused, and you got to where you wanted to go. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I really appreciate you saying that, man. Yeah.
Yeah, love it, man. Love it. I remember sitting there. I'm like, man, this did this. I didn't do this. Like, forget this kid. But that's awesome. And give you props too. I remember you had the first staff meeting. So for any strength coach listening to this, Tyler came in bottom of the totem pole, and said, listen, I'm going to run a staff meeting. And because people need to be educated on just the human body, because it's like, you just have to know. And we had interns, and that's initiative, right? That's initiative that I don't think kids nowadays do at all. You got to be invited to the table. But if you want to sit at a table, man, you better tell someone I'm coming to the table. Regardless, I'll find a seat. So it is what it is, and I think that's a huge trait. So your college kids better listen to this and see that. I hope, like, the coaches that I get to coach under or work with, or any young kid that I work with, they need to know that. Like, you said, I'm gonna hold a meeting. Like, I'm holding it 8 p.m. I remember 8 p.m. at night. My wife's still mad at me for that. I remember the conversation.
This is now coming back to me. Yeah.
I remember, because it was funny, because it was like, if you don't know the muscles of the quadricep and you're going to train athletes, get out of here. Like, just, I'm like, that's so facts right there. That's like, it's amazing that some people were like, wait, there's 4 muscles of the quad. It's 4, man. What do you mean? The word is in itself.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah. I've tried to calm down my brazen tactics just a little bit, because that can be a little insufferable to have to always be around that. But yeah, no, I appreciate it.
It is what it is, man. That those are some traits that, I hope it doesn't stop with us 30-year-olds, right?
Yes.
I hope some of the young 20s and mid 20s, they have that confidence to put themselves out and just, do that, because that's extremely a valuable trait. And you and Zane possess that trait, and it's there's a reason why you both are at, Zane, obviously you're at a college where, the basketball team went to the Final Four, football, you got a stellar football weight room, women's volleyball, beach volleyball is like a gigantic sport now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be able to pioneer the way to help those athletes. I got athletes right now who, like, that's where they want to go. Like, you may see 2 of my kids in like 4 years, like, without a doubt. They are all about beach volleyball.
Nice. That's awesome.
So it's huge. So I'm going to send this to them, because, they are obsessed with beach volleyball, obsessed with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. All right. At this point, all right, I got 2 more. Favorite podcast?
Ooh. Favorite podcast? I've gotten out of the podcast industry in a lot of ways. So it's kind of lame, but
they are kind of repetitive in a sense, though. Sometimes you fall in love with a guy. It's the same story every time. Yeah. Same. I get that.
From an educational strength and conditioning standpoint, I will say Tim Caron's podcast, his performance health podcast, has been absolutely awesome. So shout out to
IRN.
It's Caron, Tim Caron. and then it's Performance Health PH, I think what it is, and then PH podcast. Yeah, no, Tim is a brilliant guy. I was fortunate enough to meet him last May for his last muscle mentorship. And the guy is just smart as a whip, and he covers it all, man. He covers it all, and he does. There's really nobody doing a podcast quite like him, where it's just like one-off stuff. He has straight up curriculums within his podcast. He has 4 episodes dedicated to a topic, plus blog articles, plus stuff on his website. He has a book called Strength Deficit. So if you're into, strength training stuff, definitely buy that book. It's well worth the read. But yeah, that's probably my favorite educational strength and conditioning one. I love Around the NFL. I'm a big football guy, so Around the NFL is one of my favorite ones. And then, Joe Rogan has a good setup over there with what he's doing. I love when he has his comedian friends on, and it's just kind of crazy. So
yeah, 100%. I like it. All right, favorite sport to train thus far?
If you asked me 2 years ago, I would have told you wrestling.
Okay.
And not that it's just I haven't worked with them in so long. But probably wrestling if I had to absolutely choose one. But I love my teams that I have here at Florida Atlantic. Like, it's insane. They have been unbelievably welcoming and unbelievably coachable since the day I walked through the door. So I can't thank them enough for how awesome they've been and how receptive they've been, because from what I've heard, I am far and away different than the previous person that they had. And, especially coming, from the military to here and all that kind of stuff. It's been awesome. And they've, rolled with the punches, and it's been awesome.
Cool. Love it. Well, I can promise you this: when you get your feet wet or ready to talk about the beach volleyball game, I need to hear more about it. Need to learn what you're doing. Yep. I got athletes, like I said. There's a newly formed team here in Rochester that's just beach volleyball. So this is a growing sport. Really? I'd love to dive deeper into that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember at PCX there was a growing number of girls when we were training all the volleyball clubs.
Paradigm or one of the two?
Paradigm, yeah. I remember there was a growing number of those girls kind of venturing towards the beach sector of things. It's
always been popular just because in the summertime, but now like there's the Division I piece too. Like athletes are going to college for beach volleyball, so there actually is like a purpose to training all year round. There's a handful of girls that I think they do like online schooling, and they go to Florida a bunch, and they'll like do a bunch of private lessons from Rochester. They drive out there, they fly out there. So it's like gigantic. It's really growing.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
Yep. All right, dude. It was great talking to you. Great catching up. It's awesome to see where you're at. I know you and Zane will crush it out there. Like I said, I knew from day one at PCX you were going to get to where you wanted to go. You're a hard worker. You're a grinder. So I respect the head you got on your shoulders and the effort you put in every day.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, this has been fun.
No doubt, man. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Tell Zane I said what's up.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Peace, buddy.
See ya.